Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about waveform representations and bandwidth. Waveform. A waveform is a graph that shows a wave's change in displacement over time. A waveform's amplitude controls the wave's maximum displacement. The waveform of an electrical signal can be visualized in an oscilloscope or any other device that can capture and plot its value at various times, with the suitable scales in the time and value axis. So, makikita dito sa picture na nandito ang example ng isang waveform. Makikita din na ang amplitude ay yung taas nung waveform at yung wavelength naman ay yung distance from one point to another. Waveform. Electrical waveforms are basically visual representations of the variation of a voltage or current over time. Periodic waveforms are the most common of all electrical waveforms as it includes sine waves. So tayo bilang mga SINE students, kadalasan na nating nakikita tong mga sine waves. At isa yun sa mga example ng periodic waveforms which is the most common of all electrical waveforms. Sine wave waveform. The AC or alternating current means waveform is a sine wave which constantly alternates between a maximum value and a minimum value over time. So, familiar naman tayo sa isang sine wave. Alternate siya na nag-go between the maximum value and the minimum value. So, makikita nyo dyan yung positive half cycle at yung negative half cycle. Yan ay example ng isang sine wave. Relationship between frequency and periodic time. Period. The time it takes for electrical waveforms to repeat itself. While the frequency naman is the number of times a period or cycle repeats itself in 1 second or cycles per second. So, para mas maintindihan natin, ito yung formula ng frequency at ng periodic time. So, frequency, ang formula niya ay 1 over T or 1 over periodic time. Ang unit nito ay hertz. Samantalang ang periodic time naman, ang formula niya ay 1 over F or 1 over frequency at ang magiging sagot naman niya ay seconds. So, try natin mag-solve ng isang example para lalo pa natin maintindihan. Sabi, ang frequency daw ay yung number of times na kayang i-repeat nung cycle, yung sarili niya, in 1 second. Kaya, constant yung 1 na nandyan. So, sabihin natin na in 5 seconds, ilang hertz yun. So, again, ang formula ay 1 over T. So, try natin 1 divided by 5. So, ang magiging sagot ay 0.2. So, ibig sabihin, ang frequency within 5 seconds ay 0.2 Hz. Next naman, sa periodic time. Sabi, ang period is time it takes for an electrical waveform to repeat itself. Halimbawa, ay meron kang 30 Hz. Gusto mo malaman kung ilang seconds ba yung iti-take para i-repeat nung 30 Hz yung sarili niya. So, again, ang formula ay 1 over F, which is 30. So, makukuha natin ay 0.03. So, ang ibig sabihin ay ang periodic time nung 30 Hz na frequency natin ay 0.03 seconds. Wavelength. Wavelength is the distance between 2 points of similar cycles of a periodic wave. Ang formula ng wavelength ay V over F or the velocity of light over F. Minsan, ang ginagamit na pamalit sa V ay letter C, which is still the velocity or the speed of light at equal yon sa 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second over the frequency. So, sample problem. Determine the wavelength in meters if the given frequency is 1.5 kHz. So, ang frequency daw ay 1.5 kHz. Ang speed of light, which is constant, is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second. Ang hinahanap natin ay yung wavelength. So, again, ang formula ay C over F, or the speed of light over the frequency. So, 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second over yung given frequency, which is 1.5 kHz, ang makukuha natin ay 200,000 meters. So, yun ang ating wavelength. Now, let's go to bandwidth. Bandwidth, a portion of the electromagnetic spectrum occupied by a signal. The frequency range over which the information signals is transmitted, or over which a receiver or other electronic circuit operates. The bandwidth of an information signal is simply the difference between the highest and lowest frequencies contained in the information. Information capacity. So, ang bandwidth ay merong information capacity. Ano ba yun? It is a measure of how much information can be propagated through a communication system and is a function of bandwidth and transmission time. It represents the number of independent symbols that can be carried through a system and in a given unit of time. So, sa information capacity, nandun ang Hartley's law na nagsasabi na ang information capacity is proportional to the bandwidth times the transmission time. Yung Hartley's law. Nandito din ang Shannon limit for information capacity. Ang formula nito ay I is equal to B log sub 2 quantity 1 plus the signal to noise power ratio, or I is equal to 3.32 B log sub 10 quantity 1 plus the signal to noise ratio. So, dun sa formula na yon, yung I ay information capacity or bits per second, kung ilang bits per second siya. B is the bandwidth, while yung S over N na nakikita nyo ay yung signal to noise ratio, which is unitless. So, try natin mag-solve ng information capacity. So, the question is for a standard telephone circuit with a signal to noise power ratio of 1,000 unitless. So, that's the signal to noise ratio, which is also equal to 30 decibels, and a bandwidth of 2.7 kHz. Determine the Shannon limit for information capacity. Again, we have two formulas for the Shannon limit, but we're gonna use the second one. So, the information capacity will be equal to 3.32, the bandwidth log 1 plus the signal to noise ratio. So, if we substitute the values and we compute it, we will get the value of 26.9 kbps. Now, try to solve these problems on your own, and I hope na may natutunan kayo for this lesson. That's all. Thank you.